Hey, welcome back. We're going to get started with part 2 of this 350 TBI engine assembly. Now, before we put rings on the pistons, we just want to double check a couple of things and make sure we have everything in order. Number one, did you get the pistons you ordered? I ordered H423 DCP, 30 over. There's the 30. And that's what I've received. Those are the pistons I received. Now, let's grab the piston here. One of the nice things about sealed power is they usually put everything on the piston. H423 DCP. And the DCP, the CP is for coated piston. I believe the D is for DuraShield. And it would be a DuraShield coated piston. It has a Teflon coating on it. It's 30 over, so that's what we're looking for. This other number, it's not an interchange number. I believe if you look this up, the H640 is for 4.3 V6. It's just they were given a different number, probably because there's only 6 pistons in that box, right? So that's what that's there for. But anyway, we know we have the correct piston, okay? Now, looking at the piston, there's a couple things to identify here. This hole right here, what does that mean? That means this piston is designed to go with this hole facing toward the front of the engine, okay? Not only do we have a hole there, on the side of the piston, we have those F's, and that's for front. So you can't really mistake it. Hole, F, front. Okay? So that seems pretty easy, right? But the only thing we got to check to make sure everything's right is to make sure a connecting rod has been installed correctly. Okay? Now, just going back to this real quick, you can see a hole like that. You can see an arrow. You can see an arrow that says front. Or we have a Dodge 3.9 liter piston here, and it's just a notch. And most Dodges are just notches like that right in the side. And if you look at the side, they also have the F's for front. So just something to watch out for if you're building an engine. You're not sure, you can take a look there. Now, when the connecting rod is installed, there's 2 ways. We have a nice flat surface here. Oops, sorry. We have a nice flat surface there, okay? And that's to ride along the side of the adjoining connecting rod. This side, we have a nice bevel radius in here. And that's designed to ride against the end of the crankshaft. Some might call it a fillet, I call it a radius. You call it whatever you want. But it has to be installed correctly. So in order for this piston to be a number 1 cylinder this way, okay, with the flat side, number 2, which would be over here from it, would be spun around on that side and have the flat. They'd be riding together, the 2 flat parts, okay? So that's something that we can tell. And we know that this piston and rod are assembled correctly. If you want to see the side of the... We'll show you the side of the crankshaft here. So that's just the radius filled I was talking about. That part rides right alongside of there, okay? All right, so now we'll get set up. We'll start putting some rings on some pistons. All right, I'm going to try and move you close here. So people are going to say don't ever put your piston in a vise, and they're correct. But for demonstration purposes, now watch this. This is pretty easy. Have a cleaner rag there. Set the piston in there, or the rod in there. Okay. Don't tighten it with any force. I mean, we don't want to bend anything in case it's caught. We have a piston that moves fine. We don't want to catch the skirt. We simply just want the piston to be held. Okay. Now, when we're putting on piston rings, we can just throw them on and we can orientate them after. Or we can just go through this right now. We have a top ring, we have a second ring, and then we have the expander with the 2 oil scrapers. We always start at the bottom, and we're going to start with those 2. But where do the gaps go? And I just drew this out because this is the easiest thing to find on the internet. Okay? So right here, oil ring expander. And if you don't know what the oil ring expander is for sure, that's this ring here. Okay? That ring, along with the number 1 top ring, are going to go in the 1 o'clock position. So if this is the front of the engine, And we have our dot here. That's how the engine would point. We would want those two at the very top. Okay? We'll go right to number 3. Number 3 is the second ring. No matter what, the best thing you can do for yourself is make sure your first ring and your second ring are 180. One here, one here. Or one here and one here. Whatever you want to do. This is just a point of reference. You can do it however you want to do it. But I'm just showing you a way to do this that's relatively easy. But in this situation, our top ring would be here. And our second ring, the gap would be down here. Okay? Now this number 2 are those thin little oil ring scrapers. That's these right here. Okay? And we just want to put them at the 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock position. We can put them anywhere. We can put them over here if we like on each side of the wrist pin. But I just wanted to give you guys a quick, just a guide. You can look it up on the internet. There's a lot of information out there, a lot of different information. You can look up Molly pistons. You can look up Seal Power. You can look up JE. I think you can even go into Summit and find something about this. But anyway, the two big concerns is the 2 rings, top rings, would be 180 apart. So let's install these. So if we were going to go by this diagram here, our expander, our top expander ring, if this was the front of the engine, there's the arrow, and the arrow's pointing to the circle, would be in the 12 o'clock position. So let's throw it on there. So there's the expander ring. No need to drag it down the side of the piston and scuff it up. Okay. It's a little tight actually. Alright. So there we go. That's on there. 12 o'clock. We would then take, and we're not going to use the piston expanding tool for this. We're going to take the bottom one, and we're going to go, I guess we'll probably go right about here. Just on the other side of the wrist pin. Alright. Pull it down is not to scratch the piston up, and there we go. Now I don't need it that far over. I'm going to put it back in about the 8 o'clock position. So there's our gap right here for that bottom oil scraper ring. Okay. Now the other side would be right across. So in order to do that, we'll just move that over to that side. All right, there. We have our expander and our 2 scrapers in there. We have one gap here, we have one gap here, and we have the expander gap up here. Now we're going to do the second one. Second ring, number 3. We want that down to the bottom. So we'll put that here. So let me show you something really quick here. The easy way to do this says second ring. These second rings are cast iron, so they have the same cover side to side. Okay. And our top ring, they have a silver cover and moly coating. They're also the same ring with a coating on the face. Okay. Now if you get these mixed up, if you have moly rings, it's not hard to figure out. Your top ring's moly, your second ring is cast. Alright. The other thing you want to do when you're doing this, I should have started with this, is just read your piston ring literature. There's really not a lot on this one, but some manufacturers, like Total Seal, will have a way they want you to install everything, okay? But one of the things it says here, do not spiral compression rings onto pistons. Use expander tool to install. We're going to do that today. It also shows you, look for a dot or a laser mark on either side of the ring gap to determine which side of the ring is the top side. A ring with no dot or a laser mark can be installed either way. Okay, so we'll take a look at this. But every package has, or generally has, information. So that's what we have here. By the way, these are a Hastings moly ring. And this is the part number. Okay. All right, so let's take a second ring. Have a clean rag there. Give it a quick wipe down. Don't get your rag stuck in the end and take a bunch of lint with you. Now, looking at this ring, it actually does have a, oh, it does have a dot. So we want this dot facing up. There we go. See it a little bit better. All right. So we'll get our, oops. We'll get our fancy piston ring expanding tool here. And we only want to open this ring up far enough to get it onto the piston. We don't want to really stretch it out of shape or go any further than we need to. Okay, we don't want to grind the sides. All right. So there we go. Our second ring is on. And with keeping true to form, number 3, second ring, we'll put that at the bottom. All right. And it's not, one of the things I'd mentioned before about bending rings, sometimes when people spiral a ring on, this end might be down by the oil expander ring, while this one's in the groove or not quite. You want them to be straight all the time, and that's what they don't want you to do. They don't want you to stretch them or bend them, okay? So we'll put that one at the bottom there. And we'll grab a top ring. Give it a quick wipe down. Now this ring does not have a dot. So we can install this ring either way. So double check again. No dot. And solidly square, no bevel. So we know we can install this ring either way. Okay, so install this one in the tool. Again, just open it up enough to get the ring in there. All right, there we go. We'll set that one toward the top, so we kind of have these orientated now when we want to install that piston. So that's generally how we would do that. They move really nice and free, which is what you want. The oil scrapers, the expander move side to side nicely. Those rings are installed and they're ready to go into the engine. Okay, so if we did number 2 piston, we just did number 1, the ring's on. Here's number 2. And we have this pointed to the front like it should be, and the numbers are upside down. Don't worry about that. I just wanted to point that out. Some people might think there's a problem, but that's they're just going to be upside down on the passenger side bank. All right, so installing number 1 piston rod. So let's make sure that this is pointing straight down if the engine was flipped over. So we want straight up. So this is where we're going. Okay. Number 1 is going to, on this engine is the driver's side, 1357. This is 2468. So we're going to put number 1 piston in. So we want the crank further away. So when we drop this down, we don't have any issues, right? So the first thing we're going to do, let's find a rubber glove. We're going to clean up these cylinders real quick. Okay, we're going to try this angle here for you guys to watch. All right, so real quick, let's get the cylinder cleaned up pretty quick. If you're using lacquer thinner, like I am, use a glove. It might not live long, but you're not going to be doing this too long either, right? We'll go over this one more time. I'm just going to do number 2 while I'm here. All right, so we'll use the other side of the white cloth and do that again. So I mean about keeping everything clean. If you have the opportunity to clean things up, make sure they're clean. That's a lot better Alright, before we get started real quick, wipe your piston down. Wipe everything down. We have our reins on. We'll check our orientation one more time. Wipe down your bearing. Make sure you have no nicks and gouges. We're using ARP rod bolts and nuts, so we need to use the ARP fastener lube. Okay. We're not going to use a rod bolt stretch gauge. We're going to use torques. We're going to torque these up to 50 foot-pounds. I believe it's 55, but my initial here is going to be 50. I might go to 55 secondly. What it is you want a certain amount of stretch in the bolt, and they make their torque according to that. Okay, so that 50-55 is right where you want to be. Okay, so before you forget, oil up your, just give it a couple drops of oil. Cover your skirts. Make sure you get a little bit on the bearing there. Let's make sure our top rein is at the 12 o'clock position. And our second rein's at the 6 o'clock position. Our end gaps, right? Alright. So we got that. Everything else looks good. Just going to double check it here while I'm here. Good to go. The reason I'm using this is because not everybody has a cone and everybody has something different. We'll just loosen that up. We'll just adjust this till we get where we like it. Seems pretty good right there. Push the piston up. A little tighter. All right, that should be good. So, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just adjust your little bit of tension here. All right. Now you want to use something clean. You don't want to be hitting your piston with anything dirty. I have one hammer for this basically. You can use you can do different things. This is just what I do. All right. Oops. So that's how you can do that with, like I say, basic tools you have around your shop. Now, our rod is pointing down, obviously, so if I tap this, I have my finger on the end of the rod bolt. Now I can push all the way down, but what we don't want to do, we do not want the rod bolt to hit the crankshaft, okay? So I'm okay with tapping it, checking it every so often. See where I am. We're in good shape. Okay, so we're all the way down. Now we're going to flip the engine. You can take a look here. So there we are. We haven't touched the crankshaft. We don't have any issues. All right. So what we could do right now is we could do what we did with the mains. We could put a piece of plastic gauge in there, install the cap, because right now everything's dry on this side. We have a little bit of oil on the crankshaft side, but let's take a quick peek and see what our clearance is here. Now, if you remember what we were talking about before, this has to be right in the center, okay? It can't be to one side or to the other. You want to be right in the center of the bearing. The center of the bearing is the thickest part. Okay? Right in the center. So we have the thickest part, and that's what we're measuring. We're measuring our vertical clearance. Now, remember the flat side toward the other rod? So let's install this right here. Okay. We're going to put a little bit of lube on here. Even though we're pulling this back off, we want to make sure we get a correct torque value. right. Grab a nice 16 socket. Make sure it's clean. All right, sorry about that, I just have to move around. So let's do 20 to begin with. And I'm going to go right to 50. Just in one motion. Don't stop. Okay. Now we're torqued up to 50 pounds. So, now we want to do all that. Don't use your torque wrench. It's not a good idea. All right. Let's get that off there. Now sometimes these rod bolts can locate, or pardon me, your locate can be a little bit tough. So we don't want to disturb the plastic gauge, so I'm going to just try and work this off. There we go. It's not always that easy, believe me. Sometimes it can be real bare. But the last thing you want to do is start pounding on the rod bolt nuts at this point. So try as hard as you can just to wiggle it off the way I just did. All right, we got a consistent line. Let's take a quick look here. Well, like the mains, it's almost right on 2, if anything, just under 2. Like 1.8 to 1.9 to 2. Now you can have a 210 thou variance here, which is fine. So you can be 1.8, 1.9, 2. You might even be 2.1. But you know what? It's not enough to have any concerns. The oil's not going to know. The engine's not going to know. Unless you're going for something very precise because you're running a certain style of oil and you have a certain style of system, you'll be just fine. All right. Again, lacquer thinner. It takes everything off, including the plastic gauge, which you can leave on if you like. All right. But right now, we're going to add a little bit of lube to that cap. And we're going to put it back together. People say don't touch the bearing, and they're correct. Do everything you can. Again, lacquer thinner takes a lot of stuff off. Okay, we applied a little bit of, we applied some Torco to the bearing. Again, tab to tab or face to face. Remember, the radius toward the inside of the crank. Okay. And that essentially is your piston and rod install. It's not too hard. You can, as you go along, it gets a little bit quicker. You get into a little bit of a habit of how you want to do things. But I hope this is helping some of you guys that are putting your engines together. So there's a lot of information here. So use it. And if you have any questions, ask. I'm going to torque this up. And we're going to get ready to install the camshaft. Okay, before we install the camshaft, let's just do a couple of things here. Number one, I'm going to torque these up to 20 foot-pounds. We added more lube to the bottom of the bolt. I just want them to be lubed up. Okay. So right now I'm going to go to 20 until I do the air rod up. All right. So both holes are at 20. Now, one of the things we want to do, make sure it turns over without any issue. Okay. Now, I'm not using my socket yet. I'm just going to use my hand. You can hear the rings in there grabbing or going up and down the cylinder there. Anyway, feels okay. This is important. Your side-to-side movement. Okay? If you want to know if you have a bent rod or a different problem, you want to check that side-to-side movement every time you install one of these. Okay? Especially when they're together. When you have the two together. If you're going to find a problem, that's where you're going to find it. So far, so good. It looks good. We're going to start with the camshaft. Okay, so real quick, we're going to have to install the bottom timing gear. So, of course, that means cleaning everything. So, we'll make sure we have nothing here. One of the things I wanted to bring up real quick is match sets. Make sure everything you deal with is a match set. Don't mix and match timing gears or anything like that. In this situation, we're going to use, oops, wrong way. We're going to use a Cloy's heavy duty single. I've been using one of these forever. Alright, you can hear the difference in tone. It's fully seated. Now, I wasn't hitting it that hard. It seemed like it took a little while to do it. But I just like to go carefully around. Some go easier than others. That one was actually quite tough. Alright. So we have that on. Okay, so all you're going to want to do from here is keep everything clean. We want to make sure our cambries are going to be clean. And we're going to pick our camshaft out of the box here. So what we're going to use for this, we're going to use a stock style cam. It's from Engine Tech. And here's the part number. It's a ES274. Okay. We're going to take it out of the box here. It's wrapped up. We'll unwrap it, and we're going to take a quick look at it. We talk about cleaning everything up all the time. We'll take a look and see what it looks like right out of the box. Here's a sheet that came in this cam. Alright. What they're talking about is using proper oils to break this camshaft in. Having something with some zinc additive. Okay. So when you see these, again, read them. This is your warranty, and people are packaging these all up nowadays, trying to protect people against making a mistake. Let's open this up. All right. I'm going to give this a quick wipe down with lacquer thinner. It even has the part number there, ES274, and that's awesome. So I'm going to give this a quick wipe down, and then we'll carry on. Okay, so one of the ways I install the cam is I put the bottom cam gear on, and then I can just stand it up. We're going to use some Joe Gibbs assembly loop here. Okay. And this is what I'm going to use to do this camshaft with. So you want to get it all around on every lobe. And make sure everything's coated when you're doing this. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll just coat these ones here. Don't want to put a whole bunch of excess on here, it'll just go through your whole oiling system, but you do want to make sure it's all coated. I keep starting and stopping this because my heater in the background, but we're in the middle of kind of a winter storm here, so we're lucky our power's still on. It seems to be going off and on as well. So I'm going to try and get this done so I can get this posted tonight. So a lot of this stuff is in one take like it usually is, but it might be a little quick. So I'll finish lubing all that up and then we'll get ready to install it. Okay, we've coated the camshaft with lube. Bring it over here. So this is how we're going to install it. We have Torkel assembly lube on the journals. Okay, and we have Joe Gibbs on the lobes. I installed the front timing gear, and I'm going to use that instead of a 2 or instead of bolts. That's what I'm comfortable with. So you need to use whatever you're comfortable with. Try and put it in carefully without chipping up a cam bearing. It can be a little tricky at times, but just work with it. It'll go. Okay, so what I want to point out is before we get too much further here, we lubricated the timing gear. We did not do the fuel pump eccentric. This engine doesn't even have provisions for a fuel pump, so we didn't bother. All right. So let's get the rest of the way in there. Okay, there we go. So our camshaft is in. Okay, it's lubed correctly and it's in. So let's get ready to get the timing chain on. I'm just going to clean this gear up. I'm going to clean up my hands and the timing chain. We'll get ready to put those together. Just wanted to show some of the stuff here. There's a bunch of cardboard all over this timing gear everywhere. I don't know if you can see it in the video or not. That's what we're cleaning off. So let's get that cleaned up real quick and get back here. Alright, let's install this timing chain real quick. So we all know that we're supposed to use that we go dot to dot. So here's the dot here, and obviously there's a dot on the timing gear. Okay. We've cleaned these up so they can sit here. Now we just got to get this back to number 1. So, pardon me, TDC. So let's do that right now. So as you can see, we have our bridge mic out here. We're at 0, as you can see, moving all the way down. So let's see what we're at. Let me get this down here. Okay, right about there. And we're 13.5 thou down the hole. So let's call it 14. So this piston is 14 thou down. Yeah. It's actually 13. 13.5, right on the money. Okay, so that's essentially our TDC. Okay. So we can just take this. We can line the 2. I'll show you this in a second. We'll line these 2 dots up. We'll install the chain onto the gear. One thing that's very important is oiling these chains when you install them, by the way. Okay. We'll line these. Okay. Okay, so we're going to make some slight changes here. So I'm cutting part of the video out here. We've installed this single roller Cloy's timing chain, and it's quite loose. So I went and got just a regular Steel Power double roller. I think it's the same one everybody else uses, like Engine Tech and everybody. TS163. So we're going to clean this up, remove the other one, and get this installed and see if it tightens up compared to what we have now. Okay, so we got the timing chain and the gear off, and I did this off camera because I was a little concerned by how loose it was, that we might have another issue. This block wasn't a line hone or a line board, so I wasn't too sure why that chain was so loose. So I quickly put a little bit of heat to the bottom gear, just kind of isolated the bottom gear, nothing else. And I have these old gear clamps, or pardon me, two jaw clamps with a rod bolt in the end of it that I put in the end of the crankshaft. So you apply a little bit of heat to spin the thing right off. I applied heat to the bottom gear. I just held on to them with a set of pliers, cleaned them up, applied some heat. It slid right on. Just had to tap it on the last, I don't know, 40 thou, 60 thou. Did the timing chain up, and voila. We're good, nice and tight. I'm not too sure what happened with the last one. I'm going to cut that part of the video out. So this video is taking a few days, you guys. Between power outages and storms and things we have going on. And of course, having to go to town, get a timing chain to replace the one we already had. Just a few things, a few hurdles that happen to absolutely everybody when they're putting these things together. Even the most basic of engines like this one. Anyway, we'll get moving on and we'll get the rest of these pistons and rods in. Okay, so we're going to clean up the all the cylinder bores. One of the things I wanted to point out, I used a white rag yesterday to do the bores. And these are supposed to be a lint-free, reusable wipe, basically. And these are a wipe all, and they're 41455. Now, I wouldn't say they're exactly lint-free all the time. But if you want to keep things clean and you want to double check everything, these are great. You can go over them with something after. They're just a great product to use. So just wanted to point that out for anybody that was wondering what we were using. And I'm just going to clean these up. And we'll get back to work. One of the things I'll point out here too, well, your chamfer is almost nil or very mild. Your piston is going to have to be exact just to go in. Okay, the bigger the chamfer, the easier it is to get the piston to start in. All right, you don't have a problem. That's just all it is. Just like I went through there. Not a big deal. Don't let it bother you. Okay, so I put a small piece of plastic gauze right there, right in the middle. I'm just gonna do this real quick. One more time. Now that I've committed to this, I'm probably just going to keep doing this throughout the rest of this. We're going to be dry on the bearing. We're dry on the crankshaft. We have an ever so slight amount of lube coming out from the side there. We'll be fine. This is number 2. Now again, we're using ARP fasteners. So we're going to use a little bit of a ARP lubricant. Yesterday I was saying I was torquing these to 50. I did look in the book last night. I guess they're 55. I wasn't sure. I was pretty sure they were 50, 55, but they are 55, they state. So if you're doing this, just do it at 55. Go with the manufacturer recommendation. It's the easiest. Okay. Then somebody else will probably say, hey, how come you didn't torque up everything last night? Because I like to do a final torque at the same time with all the same temperature, same everything. That's the only reason I do it the way I do it. So if you follow along with these builds, you might want to follow along with the whole build, because I'm showing you probably a couple bad habits. But it's just the way I've been doing it for so long. So we'll start this off at 20. Do this so I can see it better. Okay. And then we'll do one straight pull at 50. And remember that, you want a straight pull to 50. Or I guess we'll do 55. Don't use your torque wrench to back them off. We'll just switch to a strong arm. Okay, remember, try and protect that plastic gauge. Perfect. Okay, so let's take a look to see where we are. Yeah, right around 2. It's always the same. The reason I say right around is this isn't precise measurement, but it's within a couple tenths thou. It's close. So let's clean that up properly. Get that out there. When you use the ARP lubricant, sometimes it'll grab on the rag and make a big mess there. Just like that. Okay. Make sure this area is clean. It's imperative that all your bearing surfaces are clean. All right. We'll put some assembly lube on the bearing right after we clean it. We'll get that plastic gauge off there. Sure the ends of the caps are clean. We're good. Put some lube on it. I know for some of you people, these videos are painfully slow. I'm just trying to help people along the way here. Radius flat against the other rod. And the 2 tabs of the bearing will be together as well. There you go. Probably don't need any more, but we'll put some on anyway. Spin these down real quick. And for the time being, till I do all the final torques, torque them up to 20. Okay. Give it a quick rotation. We should probably move that chain up. Check our side to side. We're good. That's all. You can measure or look for your recommended side to side clearance between your rod, just so you can write down in your book to see what it is. The sad reality is there's really nothing you can do about it if you continue to go forward and it's not perfect. And if it is perfect, great. But our biggest thing, we want to make sure we don't have a bent rod. And that's the best way to tell. If they don't move when you put that together, you got big problems and you need to move forward with it. I'm going to take this timing chain off, cleaned up, put the rest of the sharp block together, and we'll come back. Okay guys, we're going to do a quick ring check here, ring and gap check. Let me get my stuff out here. So we're going to start at, I don't know, what's the minimum? Our minimum ring and gap can be 15, okay? So let's start there. Now before we get going, you can use a piston, or you can use a set of calipers like these to put your ring in. I put these in exactly an inch. I push them down a little far, right? Then I pull back into them to make sure it's an inch all the way around. That way I can get an accurate reading on what the ring gap is. I'm kind of shooting for 18. Our minimum is 15. Okay, that was 15, and that's that didn't work. It was bigger than 15. Okay, let's try 17. Stop 17. 18 is pretty nice. '19 gets caught at the end. So that's what we'll call it. We'll just call it 19 for the heck of it. 20 doesn't go all the way through. So we're in good shape. But remember that. You want to be an inch down, and you want to make sure that that ring is an inch down all the way around. Not 1.2 on one side and 1 inch on the other. Otherwise your reading won't be accurate. Okay, we completed the other pistons and installations here in the rods and stuff. So everything went together. Everything was good. The biggest problem we had so far with the engine was the loose timing chain, and we've addressed that already. We took off the one we installed and we put on a different one. Everything else has been good. Clearances are in that probably 1.8 to 2 range. Our thrust was good. Everything was good. So we'll do a final torque before we bolt on the timing cover and do the rear seal and the oil pan. It'll be on the same day, same temperature, everything together. You know the drill. That's the way I've always done it, and that's the way I'm going to do it. If you choose to want to torque up everything individually, that's totally up to you, and it's probably just fine. I'm just a little, probably LCD, I guess. But I just do it the way I do it. This is just a guide. I mean, watching somebody do this, number one, it's a little awkward because I'm not used to filming. And number two, it just gives you a guide to see how other people may accomplish some stuff. It doesn't mean it works for you. It just means you get to see it happen, and maybe you can apply it to some of the things you do. But overall, I'm really happy. It turns over nice. We have great rod side clearance. We have no issues. Remember to add some more assembly lube to the thrust here. I just did. And the timing chain, I just I douse it, rub it in, turn it over, douse it, rub it in, turn it over. That's what I do there. Everything looks good. And I hope this video helped a few people that are doing the torque block here. And stay tuned. We got part 3 going here ASAP. Thanks for watching.